Hey everyone, welcome to this second session of our 8-week workshop on how to make posters using Canva. I hope you enjoyed the first session, and very quickly, uh, through a verbal recap of what we did, in our first introductory session, we went through some of the basics of how to navigate yourself using the various elements in Canva to create the posters. In the second one, we got a little bit deeper and we also tried to understand the visual characteristics of fonts through our exercise and also how to input images into your poster, how to marry the images with the text, how to put them one on top of the other, and a lot of tricks along the way that I did share. Now, we also explored the various elements or aspects of symmetry and shapes and how when symmetry is maintained in a poster with the various elements and the right shapes are used, they go on to convey the right message of what you want to get across. So in today's video, what we shall be exploring is a couple of more design aspects that you need to keep in mind when you're creating your posters. One of the first things is visual hierarchy. So whenever you create a poster, how do you arrange the elements in your poster? We shall explore this through these exercises. Now, for example, over here, you can see that the heading has a much bigger font. The subtitle has a slightly smaller text size and the body text has the smallest text size. And it is important, like when you look at this poster, the first thing that you see is the big heading. And that is because, not just because it is written, not just because the word heading exists, but also because of the text size. So similarly, on the right hand side, you have environment, plastic pollution, animals and birds are under increasing threat from plastic waste. So the last line is actually a description of what plastic pollution does. And plastic pollution, and as a way, in a way, is like the subtitle to the heading environment. So your goal through this poster is to get people to understand that the environment is the most important aspect and there exists plastic pollution which is causing animals and birds to be under increasing threat. So if I were to define a hierarchy of what is more important in terms of conveying the message, environment would come first, then would be plastic pollution, and the third would be animals and birds are under increasing threat from plastic waste. So in this exercise, what they tell you to do is they tell you to change the font size. So there are three ways in which you can affect the hierarchy in a specific poster. One of it is changing the font size. So over here, they ask you to increase the font size to make it the biggest because the environment or the word environment is what you want your viewers to catch first. The second is what aspect of the environment are you actually concentrating on? Is your poster targeting or is your poster what message do you want to get across? And the third is the description. So when I create this kind of a hierarchy in terms of a difference between the font size itself, the largest font that exists on your poster will be the first that the viewer actually catches. Okay, another way to do this thing is apart from increasing the size, you can also increase, apart from increasing the size of a font, you can also increase the size of an object. Similarly over here, what they say is increase the size of the object and your eyes are drawn towards star and stargazing. Another way you can create a visual hierarchy is by trying to change the color of the fonts. So similarly over here, you have style creates hierarchy, right? And what they ask you to do is to change this color to something that is different from the others. So if I change this to yellow, all of a sudden, when you are looking at your poster, the first thing that catches your mind is the word create because it is different from the font colors of the other words. Similarly, if you want to go a step further, you can actually change the styling of the font. You can, for example, change it to italics. You can change it to underline. Anything you can do to that specific font if that is different from all the other text that is there, automatically the viewer's eyes will be drawn towards that specific text or that specific element that exists. Now, where does this principle come in handy for us when we're creating our Toastmaster meeting posters? Now, consider this is the information that you have in order to create a Toastmaster meeting poster. What do you think is the most important uh, text over here that you want to convey to your audience? Of course, if it's a normal meeting, it is actually the theme. So when you are creating or designing your poster, you will assign, for example, the highest priority to that of the theme. So when somebody looks at the poster, they instantly see the theme first. The second would be Toastmaster of the day. Who is conducting the meeting? The third would be the date and the time, and probably even your, say, your club, the name of your club. For example, mine is Anaphon Speakers Club. And of course, you have other peripheral information that it's good to have. For example, Goa Toastmasters Presents, or what we could write is Anaphon Speakers Club Presents. Let's delete this. So what I would do over here is, because I want Anaphon Speakers Club as a name to exist on the top, what I would do again in that box on the top itself, I would define a hierarchy. And what I would do is I would bring the word presents down. So when people see it first, the first thing that they see is Anaphon Speakers Club. In order to make sure the Anaphon Speakers Club is not given like the same importance visually to the word presents, what I can do is I can reduce the size of the text presents. Let's create to 32. Okay, so Anaphon Speakers Club is the first thing that you will see, and then you have presents. Now the theme would have to be the biggest of the lot, or you can change it through any way that you want to affect the hierarchy, whether it is through color, whether it is through changing the size, or even whether it is through changing the size of the text. So I could do this, or if I could even go ahead and I could make it bold. Let me put this in a straight line and align it to the center. Then by Toastmaster of the day, Nigel. The third aspect is also the date. So this date, I will make it slightly smaller than the other one. And because the date and the time, that information needs to be relatively, it has relatively the same importance, I will make this font the same as that of the date. And so when I arrange it over here like this. And you can even see Bennu is Zoom. Now, when you look at this, all of a sudden, when you look at this poster, you see that the theme has the highest priority. The moment somebody looks at this poster, the first thing that they're going to notice is the theme. The second thing they're going to notice is by Toastmaster of the day, Nigel. And probably their eyes will then go to Anaphon Speakers Club Presents, and then they will look at the date, the time, and the venue. And you've been able to create this hierarchy by manipulating the elements in your poster or in your text by changing the size of it only, or changing the structure of it only. Now, if I wanted to go even further, I have the word theme, but I don't want people to concentrate on the word theme. I want people to concentrate on the words how to create a poster. So what I could do to separate all of this out is I could change this color to a different color, say a yellow, or yellow on the white does not look too good. It's not as readable. So let me change it to red. And so again, I've changed the hierarchy of the poster by ensuring that a viewer first reads how to create a poster, then he sees the word theme at the side, then probably by Toastmaster of the day, Nigel, Anaphon Speakers Club, following by date, time, and venue. So it is very important to understand that when you are selecting the size of the fonts, in your poster, try and ensure that you're creating some sense of hierarchy or some sense of order of what is more important in the text than the other. Now, the second exercise is also, a lot of times you will see that in posters, when people are making, there's so much of color, there's so much of clutter in the poster that it becomes very difficult to understand what really is there in the poster. And the moment you see it, you are repelled by it because there's no sense of order. There's too much of information in it, very difficult to understand what is important. So that is why whenever you're creating a poster, whether it is in terms of the colors or in terms of the elements that you're choosing, try and reduce it to the minimum amount. Unless you want to create some sort of very eccentric poster. But most of the time, 90% of the times, you want a certain message to come across from your poster. So over here, you have a pink color that is used for an icon, whereas over here, you have a slightly greenish turquoise color that is used for all the others. And what this exercise says, that it is always often, in order to enhance the clarity of your design, it is often a good practice to limit the number of colors that exist in your poster. So over here, what they do is they ask me to go up over here and change it. So if I click on this icon and I go here, I see that this color has been selected. So if I want to change this top icon to that color, all I have to do is click over here on my color icon and then click on that specific color. So this becomes much more easier and much more pleasant to read. Similarly, over here, a lot of times there are too many elements. You have one element, but you have far too many smaller elements that are drawing your attention or making your poster look crowded. So the way in which you create your poster in such a way that it does not feel crowded is by reducing the number of elements that are there in the poster. Similarly, over here, they have mentioned if you delete, now look at this poster, and then once I delete all the smaller stars, this message and what it's trying to express is just a lot more cleaner, a lot more visually appealing than when the small stars were there all around it. Now, in this exercise, one of the ways in which to reduce the amount of text that exists in a poster is actually by using icons or using smileys. I think a lot of us are very used to using smileys in our WhatsApp messages, and that often conveys much more information than a really long line of text. And so wherever you get the opportunity, Canva has a huge array of icons. For example, if you want, say, a specific shape or anything of that sort, you can obviously go to your elements and you can choose, say for example, you want a hand shape. You click on enter and it will show you different types of hands that you can use. You can click and automatically it appears on your poster. So over here, the small exercise says, instead of writing the words like us on Facebook, this icon is ubiquitous to Facebook. The moment you see it, you know it is about liking something on Facebook. So what they say is reduce this and put this image instead over here, or this icon. Okay. Now, again, this is something that we've talked about. In your posters, try and use a maximum of just 2 fonts, if at all 3 fonts, but 2 fonts is the best in any poster. Try and not have far too many fonts in your poster. So over here, what they say is to change it to just 2 fonts. So let me change this to Montserrat Classic, because it helps ensuring that your message is a lot cleaner. It's just a visual trick when you're designing your posters. Now, one of the things that we did not explore in our previous exercises was how do you move elements behind and in front of each other. So take for example, I see that there's a specific text that exists behind this yellow box. And if I want this yellow box to go behind the text that exists, there is this option over here called position. And when I click on position, I can move that element either backward or forward. So when I click it over here, you can see that this text has come in front of the yellow box and this image is completely behind. So you can create this sort of depth between the various elements that exist in a poster using this option of position. Now let us come to designing with shapes. So whenever you have text, if you want to add a sort of a border, or if you want to add any other sort of element to help concentrate the viewer's gaze onto that specific message, you can use shapes, and shapes are there in elements. So if you click on elements and you go to shapes and click on see all, you will see all the different types of shapes that you can use. Some of you must have already used this quite often, but Toastmaster Lawrence, yes, had mentioned had a question about how to increase the size of a frame. And let me show you how to do it. So over here, the exercise says search for shapes and place a rectangular shape around the text. So over here you can see that there exists, I've clicked on a box, and now let me manipulate this element to fit around this text. Now, in case I'm not too happy with the size of this frame, what do I do? If you want to change the thickness of a frame, what you need to do is you need to click on the frame and you need to scale it diagonally or scale it. When you scale it diagonally, the thickness of the frame changes. For example, I want a very thin frame, say this thin. What I will do is, after scaling it diagonally and reducing the thickness of the frame, I then use these adjusters on the top and the side over here to adjust the frame and then align it to how I want it to fit around whichever element. If I wanted, for example, to increase the thickness of this frame, what I would do is I would scale it diagonally to whatever size I wanted. And once I've done that, I then use these adjusters at the side and at the top and bottom to position my frame in such a way that it fits the element that I wanted to encompass. So that is how you increase or decrease the size of a frame in Canva. Similarly, over here, the exercise says make the rectangle thinner to resemble the design on the left. So I can use these side adjusters to reduce or increase the thickness of my element. Again, a small exercise over here, arrange the layout to match the design on the left. So like I said, maintain symmetry. Whenever you're creating a poster, if you want to align, for example, if you had two elements and you wanted to align this circle that is there over here with that is there on the other side, oftentimes you might want to do that. What you would do is, you can see over here how I get guided by these dotted lines, pink dotted lines. The horizontal pink dotted lines here inform me, when I get all of these three, that it is matching up to the center and the top and bottom of the circle on the left. Similarly, over here, this vertical line on my right hand side, dotted vertical line, says that it is centered to the center of the white square. So whenever you're creating your posters, you can use those dotted lines as a guide to help you define the alignment of your specific element. Over here, this is something that I did cover in my previous video. If you want visibility of a specific text, you can either reduce the transparency of the background image, or you can change the color of the text to a contrasting color, or you can place a visual element like it is written over here behind it to make sure that this text is much more visible. Because on a gray background, let me show you. On a gray background, the 33 is not as visible than when I put an element behind it and I place 33 on that element. So let us move on to the next exercise of how to use backgrounds. Now I did explain parts of this in my previous videos and exercises, but let me go into further detail for this specific one. So over here, you have an exercise that has the word big city, and you're supposed to choose an background in such a way that the words big city is actually clearly visible. Very simply, we can go to the photos library. You can type the words big city and you can choose a photograph and you can drag and drop it into your frame. Give me a second. Yes, but what is happening over here is the text is not visible. So it is always advisable to ensure that the background is contrasting to the text. And over here, one quick way of doing it is by actually using an image like this. Okay. Similarly, if you want, I told you, you could choose an element to put behind the text. Over here, they have a transparent element. And the moment I put the transparency, without the transparent element, the contrast color is not as visible as when I put the transparent element behind it. So whenever you're creating your posters, try and ensure that that your text is clearly visible. And there are various tools that you can use or various tricks that are there, like putting backgrounds, changing the transparency of your background, changing the color of your text. Okay, now another small part about editing pictures in Canva is that when you double click on a specific image, you get these you get this kind of a frame that comes. And this frame can be used in order to crop the image to a specific size. For example, over here, I can only have this texture that exists. And when I click outside, when I manipulate the image, I get only this image. So this is in a way, any image, when you double click on it, you can edit and you can choose to crop it to the size that you want. Okay, so moving on to the next exercise, a lot of the elements in Canva can actually be directly colored. You must have tried this out. But when you click on the color, you get options over here that directly change the small parts of that specific element. So over here, I can change this using the color wheel to say, those are the seeds, so it stays black. This is probably like a watermelon, so it stays, let me change this to red. Sorry, that's the skin, so let me change it to green, and the gray part, let me change it to red, and all of a sudden you have a very tasty watermelon. Now this is something you might often find, that you have a specific color and you want to match this color to a different element. But how do you do it? You don't have the hex code to do it. So what you will do, if you want to add the same color to this other element, you click on this color over here, you go to new color, and when you click on new color, you get the hex code over here at the bottom that shows you the color of the current selection. So you copy this hex code and you can click on this, any other element that you want, you can click on new color, and when you paste this hex code, this the color from the previous element becomes same as that of the current element. Sorry, the color from the current element becomes same as that of the previous element. Now, take for example, you have an image. Let me go to my downloads folder and drag one. Say for example, you have this image and I want to put a text on the image. Say for example, let's call the text nature. Okay, in case I did not want to use black color for my text, or let's go a step further and add a small element. a rectangular element to this image. Some of you might say that that green color does not actually match the image. So what is the quickest way to get a color for an element, whether it's text or whether it is any other pictorial element or shape? What is the quickest way of getting a color that actually matches a photograph? The quickest way to do it is by using this tool called Color Palette Generator that Canva provides. So when I click on the color palette generator that Canva provides, what they do is they will give you a series of colors along with their hex codes that already exist in any image. For example, let me upload this image. It scans, so Canva will scan this image and then give me a series of colors, that is 5 colors over here, that actually complement this image. So these colors have been drawn or they've been pulled from the image. And so in case I've copied this color, and let me go back to my element. Let me reposition it. So in case I go back and I click and I add this color, there is a high probability, of course, when I use that color as a background, that it actually matches the photograph. And this is one of a small trick that you can use in order to get colors for images, in order to get colors for elements that actually match an image. In case you're unhappy with the selection of colors that Canva has given you, Canva also provides various other tools. For example, color palette ideas. And you can click over here and you get various combinations of colors that you could scroll through and say, for example, you like this specific color combination. You can click on it. You can copy these hex codes that exist for a specific image, and you can go back to your image and change the color of whichever element that you want. Similarly, apart from this color palette ideas, Canva also has a little bit of information on the color wheel, how colors are generated. You can come here and you can find complementary or monochromatic colors. So a small explanation is there. In case you want, I shall share this link separately, where you can copy it. You can move around the color wheel and choose a color that's either complementary or analogous or triadic, all stuff like that. And in case, again, you're unhappy with the selection, you could go and actually find the meanings of different colors. For example, a pastel red, what does it actually imply? Generally, where is it used, and what is a history behind the color and stuff like that. So this brings us to the end of today's workshop video. I hope you learned something from it. If you have any questions about anything that has been shared in the video, feel free to put them across either in the group, or if you want, you can directly message me and I shall do my best to answer it. Thank you for tuning in.